The daffodils are out, the sun is shining, and the weather is a lot warmer than it used to be, so I think it's safe to say that spring is finally doing its thing, and I couldn't be happier. Anyway, hello and welcome back to another video. In this one, I'm going to do a review of the Lomography LomoGraflok Instant Back for 4x5 cameras, and, well, just large format cameras. And I'm doing this in a bit of a different way. Usually for my reviews, I just sit at home, I talk about them, I show some things. But I think this is one that would really benefit off doing the review while while shooting, basically, while being outside, because this isn't necessarily a piece of equipment that has like any specs to say like at all or anything like that. It's just basically a film holder. So I think it would be a lot better to talk about it here rather than making a video at home, where it's a little bit more boring. But if you're wondering what the Lomography LomoGraflok 4x5 Instant Back is, it's basically a attachment that you put on the back of 4x5 or 8x10 cameras if you want to do that, that have a Graflok locking system on the back. And it basically allows you to put this brick looking thing on the back of a camera, and it allows you to shoot some Instax film, which is really cool because large format instant film isn't made anymore, I don't think, unless there's like, I think there's a company that's making it. They're like buying used up ones and then like basically making them new again, but it costs an arm and a leg, and this is a lot cheaper way to shoot instant film on a large format camera. I'm not going to structure this video in my usual way of doing reviews, where I basically say what the product is, say why I've got it, do pros and cons, and then finish. I'm just going to tell you what it is, and I'm going to get straight into the cons. So let's set this camera up, and let's take some photos. So I've got the camera fully set up right here. I just had my shutter release cable snap in the thread of the place where it goes. So I'll not be able to use a shutter release today, which is a bit disappointing, but it is bright enough so that I shouldn't be able to use like slow shutter speed, so hopefully it doesn't make a difference with anything. I have to get that with pliers a bit later. But anyway, it's a good time to just talk about the first con of using this Lomograph here. Well, we'll just quickly start with something that's a pro, but not really a pro. It's really small, it can fit in my pocket. But anyway, the first con, I'm going to say the first con is that you can't really use this like you would do if you were just shooting like a high quality instant camera, like a Polaroid i2 or one of the Mint cameras. This Lomograph back is basically just an extension of a 4x5 camera, and that, is very obvious. But when I got it, I was hoping to be able to shoot it, not the exact same way that I'd be shooting an instant camera, but sort of a similar way where I was a bit more carefree about things. But the process itself is identical to large format. It's the exact same, apart from right at the end, you just attach the back and you use it. And it doesn't have that like instant camera feeling or anything like that. It just feels like you're shooting 4x5, and you tend to be more careful than shooting like normal film because there's extra steps involved. So that's definitely something that I'd say is a con, and may seem obvious to people, but to even myself, it wasn't that obvious to me, because I was hoping to be able to shoot this like I would do if I was just taking photos with a high quality instant camera. Well, not the exact same, because obviously that's just point and shoot, but I was wanting to have, a bit more control and a bit of a slower experience, and then being able to get high quality images. But it's not that, it's just entirely shooting 4x5. I found my first shot that I'm going to take. It's just some daffodils that have some nice light on them, because I haven't really done much landscape photography with this camera, and I've, would like to do so. But anyway, that last con is a really easy way to segue on to the next con, which is that because using the Lomograph is basically, just using a 4x5 camera with an extension, the process is slow. It's really, really slow. But it's even more slow than just shooting 4x5, because you need to take the ground glass off. Well, first of all, you need to put a little extension thing in the back of the ground glass to make sure that the focal plane is in the right place so you can focus properly. Then you need to focus with that, take it out, take the ground glass off, put the Lomograph in after setting up all of your other things like doing your light meter reading, your focus and your composing, all of that. You put the back on, you take out the dark side, you take the photo, you put the dark side in, you take it back off, then you can print it. Because if you don't do that, then it can get caught on your camera and it will bend the print and will mess up the development. So the process is extremely long, and it's not very good if you are wanting to take portraits, which is what I've mainly done with it. Like, you can do it, I've done that with it quite a bit, but it's not as easy as shooting something like this. Oh, the light's gone off these daffodils. It should hopefully come back. But yeah, it's not as easy as doing something like this. And I know one of the appeals of shooting large format is being able to slow down, but this is to a point where it's not beneficial for you, because it's just adding those extra steps in between the time of composing, focusing and all of that for things to go wrong. So this is like slowing down to the burden of your creative process. Like, it's fun to shoot, but it's really, really not fun to shoot at the same time, purely because it just takes ages. Like, it takes so long just to get a photo, and it takes that long that usually I'd be like, oh hey, I'm gonna, skip this photo because I'll go and get another photo, but like, by the time that I'm done setting up this camera, I will probably have the light that I want and everything that I need, so it's a slow process. The light didn't come back on those daffodils that I was going to photograph, but I did manage to get a photo of some daffodils just over there that do have some light on them, so that's good. But I've just printed my photo. I was actually meant to be recording printing the photo, but I guess I just didn't press record. I've done this whole bit already, but I'll just do it again. So the photo is printed. It's just underneath my dark cloth developing, because you're not meant to actually put it in bright light or anything like that while it's developing, and you're not meant to shake it as well, which I just don't understand why that was a whole thing with Polaroid. But anyway, it's a good time to talk about my next point. I'm going to show you this photo once it's done developing, but that is that Instax film is incredibly sensitive. It's ISO 800, which isn't anything like super crazy. When I mean sensitive, I mean that the dynamic range is practically nothing. So if you have a highlight and a shadow, one of them is going to be overexposed. That's the only way that these Instax photos are going to come out. You can't get a perfect exposure. And that's really annoying, because when you're shooting Instax with this, you're wanting to get those high quality photos, but you're practically unable to do that because it will just be completely blown out or completely underexposed. And like that image that I took there, I made sure that it was a little bit underexposed because the highlights were very bright. But because of that, it means that most of the image is most likely going to be in complete darkness, and the highlights are still probably going to be overexposed. But when I say a little bit underexposed, I mean a quarter of a stop, because that's all you need, otherwise it's going to be destroyed. I guess this is more like a complaint about Instax rather than the actual LomoGraflok itself, but this also brings me to another point, and this is more of a personal one. I think, although the Instax wide aspect ratio made sense for this product because it's going to be used on large format cameras and their aspect ratio is 4:5, and that's not too dissimilar to the Instax wide ratio. However, I do think that it would have been a lot better to make a square format LomoGraflok that could use Polaroid film. And while Polaroid is more expensive, I think that the dynamic range is better and the colours are better, and just overall it looks nicer. I really don't like the look of Instax film. I've got an Instax SQ10 and I've got this camera here, and I don't want any more Instax. I just want to get a Polaroid now, because although I love instant film, it's just too contrasty. The highlights are always blown out, the shadows are always just completely black, and there's just like nothing that you can do with these images. But this is more of a personal thing, because I just prefer the look of Polaroid, and I wish that Lomography made the LomoGraflok either, a Polaroid one, or they make another one for Polaroid, but I don't think they'll have like licensing rights to do that. I'm not sure if they got it from Fujifilm, I don't know, but yeah, I just would prefer it if it was Polaroid rather than Instax. But let's go see if this photo is done developing. So it's been a few minutes, and although I underexposed this image, obviously it's not done developing yet, but although I underexposed this image by a quarter of a stop, yeah. So this is what I was saying about Instax. It's incredibly sensitive, and this will continue developing for a few more minutes, but it won't get too much different than that. Yeah. Not great. So I've just found my next photo. It's a bit of a weird one. It's just like this puddle in the middle of this field, but like the sky is reflecting off it quite nicely. It's also extremely harsh light right now, so you can't really see anything. That's going to affect the Instax quite a bit, but I'm hoping it won't just completely destroy it. And I also don't mind the shadows in this image just being completely black, because I like some nice leading lines to this bit of blue, and then the ground is kind of orange. So I think it will actually look really nice. But we're just going to take this one. Then I'll see you guys in a second and talk more on my last con. Right, it is extremely bright, probably too bright to even record this because like the lighting is just so harsh and the shadows are horrible. This brings me on to my last point, which is that the LomoGraflok tends to be not flush with where you are focusing, or at least the film inside isn't flush with where you're focusing, so you end up usually getting images that are out of focus unless you use really high f-stops. Like most of the time I shoot at around f22 with it because I don't really feel comfortable shooting below probably f16. I have shot at f5.6 before and I've managed to get sharp images, but most of the time you don't. It ends up being just the slightest bit out of focus. And I'm not sure if that's just like a defect with my model alone or if it's just a defect with all of them. I have heard other people say that you have to shoot at higher f-stops to get it in focus, so I know it's just not me that's only having this issue, or if it is like a widespread thing, or if it's just a few people. But I'll actually show you what I mean, because you can wiggle the back around on your camera, and I've seen people do this on other cameras other than the Intrepid, so yeah, not great. So what I'm saying is, here you can see there is quite a bit of wiggle room, and that isn't, just on my camera. That's on every camera that I've seen the LomoGraflok on. It always has a bit of wiggle room, and because of that, and the weight of the LomoGraflok, it ends up being heavier than where you're actually focusing. So like say you're focusing here, because this has added weight, it pulls it back a bit, so you're actually focusing just a little bit away. So yeah, I've also completely changed my composition. I was just going to shoot this here, but I'm actually including the tree now, which was going to be my next photo. But this one looks really nice, so I'm going to take this right here. Actually, I'll keep recording just so you guys can see how this works. So I've got to come around to the front of the lens to set everything up. I've already got it at a 60th of a second at f32, because that's what the ground is saying. The sky is a lot brighter than that, so hopefully it isn't too overexposed in the sky, although it probably is going to end up being that. Lens is closed, everything's ready, shutter's cocked, and then because I don't have my shutter release cable, I'm having to do it by hand. There we go. Oh wait, I didn't even do anything with the LomoGraflok. That's what you would do if you're taking a photo without the LomoGraflok. But if you have the LomoGraflok, you need to turn it on, which is very difficult for you to see. There's a little button there. Turn that on, that turns it on. That also means that you can take the dark slide out and then you take your photo. So if I just do that, I think my film might have actually just got exposed then, because taking this out was incredibly difficult and it ended up moving the aspect ratio of the camera. So hopefully the film isn't destroyed. Would be nice, but anyway, same thing, cock shutter, do all that, and then I just press the shutter button. There we go. And now I need to put the dark slide back in, take it off, then print my photo. Back to the beginning of the video, because this is the only place that has okay light right now. Anyway, I didn't record my last two photos because the lighting is just terrible. It's actually gotten quite nice out right now. The big cloud has just gone over the sun, and there's also nowhere to just put the camera up, so, But I just done a photo of like this half-destroyed ball that was in the field, and I done a silly one of a shadow self-portrait of me. But while I'm here, I thought I'd talk about the pros. And the first pro is that the Lomography LomoGraflok Instant Back is extremely fun. Even though my shutter release cable broke, my tripod broke, which I didn't speak about, but it just straight up fell apart, and I had some issues shooting my 4x5, and there were some weird noises and everything, I still had fun, because the LomoGraflok is like really fun. Like, it's just a really joyful way of shooting. It also just makes 4x5 so much more chill, and although you do tend to be more cautious and overthink things, once that image comes out of the LomoGraflok, you're like, that's why I'm doing this, it's fun. And yeah, there's nothing else in the 4x5 world that makes me feel like that I've tried. Even like cyanotype, not cyanotypes, even wet plate collodion stuff, I've tried that, just doesn't feel the same. While that is still cool, this, in my opinion, is a lot more fun. But this instant back allows you to experiment a lot more with your 4x5 photography, and in my opinion, this is like a lot more fun than normal 4x5 photography, and it brings some new life to the the niche of large format photography, because you're able to just see your images instantly. You're not worrying about them being perfect, and you also get a quite nice instant photo at the end of it. And the next pro is just that Instax film is really cheap. Well, it's not like super duper cheap, but it's the cheapest instant film that you can get out there. And in terms of film prices at the moment, Instax is actually pretty good. It's stayed the same for, well, since I've been shooting instant film, which has been like 3 or 4 years now, and it's been the same ever since, and it's the same price for every single size of instant film. So you can get 2 packets worth of film, which is 20 photos, for about £15, maybe a bit cheaper, maybe £14. It's like really good value for money. It ends up being less than £1 per print, and it's just like a fun way to take photos. And I think that's like a really good advantage that Instax has over Polaroid, like I was mentioning earlier, how I'd like to see a Polaroid version of the LomoGraflok. The Polaroid one would be extremely expensive, and you'd be overthinking things even more because of how expensive it is. Like 8 photos of Polaroid is like 16, 17 quid last time I checked. I'm pretty sure it's even more expensive now, so it's just ridiculous. But those are just the 2 pros. There's a lot more negatives than there are positives, but I think that just that one positive of the Lomograph being extremely fun outweighs all of the negatives. Like, yes, it is a pain in the ass to use, yes, it is extremely slow, yes, Instax film has many flaws, but it's still really fun to shoot. And like I said a minute ago, it breathes new life into 4x5, and whenever I'm sat there thinking like, oh, I want to shoot something a bit different, or I'm wanting to use my 4x5 but I don't want to take, my Fobapan or my HP5 out and like have to load all of that and be really, careful with what I'm shooting and make sure it's perfect and be disappointed with the results, I remember that I have a Lomographlok, and I'm just like, let me just go use that because it's fun and you just get interesting results. But today has actually been a really nice shooting day, and I'm kind of happy that I took that last photo, because that sort of feels like a good way to end this shooting day, as it's sort of like a reminder of the first day of spring. Kind of, I'm getting blind right now. Also, I've had a weird day with my Instax film. I'm not sure if it's because it's old, it's almost a year old at this point, but my film has been wanting to be underexposed. I underexposed this by a full stop, and this is like perfectly exposed. But all my others, I've overexposed. Apart from one, I've underexposed it a little bit, but the others, I done like the correct exposure or just a little bit under, and that's really weird because I usually have to overexpose for Instax to actually get some shadow detail. But this is a full stop under, and it's turned out really well. I'm not sure if it's an issue with my film because it's almost a year old, but 2 out of my 4 photos are like really overexposed, and this one was only meant to be overexposed by a third of a stop, but it's completely blown out even for the part that I'm metered for, so I don't know what's going on there. And that one of the daffodils, the first one that I took, that's also really overexposed, and I don't know why, because I made sure to underexpose that when metering for the highlights. So yeah, I don't know, it's weird, but I'm not too mad because, it's fun. I had fun shooting it. But these last 2 photos that I got, I made sure to underexpose the shadow portrait of me by a stop, and then this one I underexposed just by half a stop because I was a bit worried about the exposure, but like they both turned out fine, so that's really weird because I've only had issues with underexposing. I've never had issues with overexposing, so that's strange. But anyway, I'm gonna get home now because the sun is setting, and I don't really want to be walking back in the dark. So I hope you enjoyed this one. If you want to see more reviews like this where I actually go out and shoot, let me know, because I'll be happy to do that. I've had a great day today. I've had a great day shooting. I've got some photos that I like. So, yeah. Hope you enjoyed. See you in the next one. Goodbye.